Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're looking into the book of Ruth.
Oh, the book of Ruth.
It's short and sweet, but
Powerfully short.
yeah.
It's incredible.
We'll be looking at the World English Bible Translation. And it's got everything. Famine, foreign lands, unexpected love,
Right.
family tree that leads straight to King David.
It's amazing how much they pack into such a short book. And it's such a beautiful book. I think anybody who reads it really enjoys it.
So let's jump right into the beginning.
Okay.
We have a family in crisis.
Yeah.
Famine hits Bethlehem. Elimelech takes his wife, Naomi,
Right.
and their 2 sons to Moab, hoping for a fresh start.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on this decision to just leave everything behind?
Oh, I think it speaks to the desperation that they must have felt. I mean, famine wasn't just an inconvenience; it was a life or death situation.
Right.
And so leaving their homeland, leaving everything they've ever known, it must have been just an absolutely last resort.
And things go from bad to worse.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Elimelech passes away in Moab, leaving Naomi to
Right.
raise her 2 sons alone.
Mm-hmm.
And the sons marry Moabite women,
Right.
Orpah and Ruth. But then tragedy strikes again,
Yes.
and both sons die too.
Yes.
It's hard to even imagine the weight of grief that all 3 of those women must have carried.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cascade of losses, one right after another. It really sets the stage for a story of resilience, I think, and the power of human connection in the face of just overwhelming adversity.
Right. In the midst of this heartbreak, Naomi hears that the famine in Bethlehem has ended.
Okay.
So she decides to return home
All right.
and encourages her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab.
Mm-hmm.
She urges them to rebuild their lives and find new husbands among their own people.
Right.
What do you think about Naomi in this moment?
Well, I think that we see her character really shine through here. Despite her own grief, she's thinking about their well-being.
Yeah.
She doesn't want them to suffer along with her. It's a really selfless act.
Yeah.
But you can also sense the despair she's feeling. She's at the end of her rope.
Orpah's response is heartbreaking.
Yes.
She's torn between her love for Naomi and the pull of her homeland, but she ultimately kisses Naomi goodbye and returns to her family.
Right.
It's a decision I think a lot of us can understand, right?
Yeah.
Like choosing what you know
Absolutely.
in the face of the unknown.
Yeah, I think that's a very human response.
Yeah.
But then we have Ruth.
Yes.
She makes this incredible declaration of loyalty that's echoed through the centuries.
And it's powerful. Ruth says to Naomi, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." I get chills
It's beautiful.
every time. Why do you think Ruth makes such a bold decision?
I think it's complex. It's got to be a mix, right? I mean, on one level, it's a testament to the bond between these 2 women. They've been through so much together.
Yeah.
But I think some scholars also believe that there's even a spiritual dimension to Ruth's choice. It's almost as if she's drawn to the God of Israel, even though she knows very little about him.
It's such a leap of faith.
It is.
Like leaving everything behind.
Yeah.
New land, new culture, new God. And let's not forget their position as women in that society.
But absolutely.
She is basically choosing to become a stranger in a strange land with no guarantees.
Right. And that's what makes Ruth such a remarkable figure. I mean, she embodies courage and compassion.
Right.
And this willingness to just embrace the unknown.
Yeah.
And her story reminds us, even in the darkest times, hope and loyalty can flourish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So Ruth and Naomi, they arrive in Bethlehem. What stands out to you about this homecoming?
Well, it's a homecoming, but it's filled with mixed emotions. The townspeople are excited to see Naomi after all these years, but she's just consumed by bitterness over everything that she's lost.
Right.
She even asks them to call her Mara, which means bitter. She feels that God has dealt harshly with her.
Yeah, it's such a stark contrast, right? You have the joy of the harvest season, the bustle of the town,
right?
And then you have Naomi carrying this weight of grief and loss.
Yes, exactly. And, they arrive at a particularly vulnerable time.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the barley harvest.
Right.
And these 2 widows, they have no land, no means of support.
Right.
They're starting over from scratch.
How do they even survive?
Well, this is where I think we see Ruth's initiative and her resourcefulness come into play.
Okay.
She steps up and suggests to Naomi that she go out and glean in the fields.
Now, for folks who don't know, gleaning, what is that all about?
So this was an ancient practice. Okay.
That allowed the poor and the marginalized to gather leftover grain after the harvest.
I see. So for someone like Ruth, a foreigner, a widow,
Right.
with no land of her own, gleaning wasn't just like a nice option. It was essential.
Exactly. It was a safety net woven into the fabric of their society,
Right.
ensuring that even the most vulnerable had a way to sustain themselves.
So Ruth goes out to glean, and as fate would have it, she ends up in a field belonging to Boaz.
Yes.
Now, this is a wealthy landowner who just so happens to be a relative of Naomi's late husband.
Yes, a kinsman.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Pure coincidence or a little bit of divine providence at play?
Well, it's certainly a pivotal moment in the story.
Yeah.
Whether you see it as coincidence or something more, it sets in motion this chain of events that will transform their lives.
Tell me about Boaz. What's he like?
Well, Boaz is immediately intrigued by Ruth.
Okay.
He inquires about her, learns of her loyalty to Naomi.
Right. And is deeply impressed by her character.
Okay.
He goes above and beyond simple courtesy. He instructs his workers to treat her kindly. Ooh. He makes sure that she has plenty to eat and drink.
So he's really going the extra mile.
Absolutely.
Why do you think he's so drawn to her?
Well, remember, Boaz is a prominent figure in the community, right? Man of standing. He's attracted to Ruth's strength and her resilience, her unwavering loyalty. These are qualities that are highly valued in their culture.
Back in town, Naomi hears about Ruth's encounter with Boaz. And she sees an opportunity.
Yeah.
This could be a way to secure a future for both of them.
Right. This is where I think Naomi's wisdom and understanding of their societal customs really come into play.
Okay.
She realizes that Boaz's interest in Ruth could be much more than just fleeting kindness.
So what does she do?
She advises Ruth to approach Boaz in a way that will appeal to his sense of kinship and duty.
Okay.
It's a bold plan. Yeah. It involves Ruth going to Boaz at night while he's working at the threshing floor.
Now that's a pretty daring move.
Yes.
It is. So the threshing floor, tell us a little bit about this setting.
So the threshing floor wasn't just a workplace. It was also very symbolic. This was where the grain was separated from the chaff, representing a kind of judgment and purification.
I see.
And Boaz, sleeping under the open sky, he was at his most vulnerable.
Right.
And this makes Ruth's actions even more daring.
Okay, so we left off with Ruth going down to the threshing floor at night. I'm still kind of stuck on Naomi's advice.
Right.
To send Ruth to Boaz at night just seems risky, even for their culture.
It definitely pushes the boundaries of social norms.
Yeah.
But remember, Naomi is operating within this system where kinship obligations are very important.
Right.
And she's really trying to leverage these customs to secure a future for Ruth.
Okay, so break down this scene at the threshing floor.
Okay.
What's the significance of this setting?
Well, like we said earlier, it wasn't just a workplace. It was also symbolic.
Okay.
It's where grain was separated from the chaff, representing this kind of judgment and purification. And Boaz is sleeping there under the open sky. He's at his most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it makes Ruth's actions even more daring.
So Ruth goes to the threshing floor, waits till Boaz is asleep, and then she uncovers his feet and lies down.
Right.
I got to admit, this part always makes me a little bit uncomfortable. What was the cultural meaning behind this act?
So it was a very symbolic gesture. I mean, one that would have been just unthinkable for a woman to do in most circumstances.
Okay.
It signified submission and a request for protection as a kinsman redeemer.
Yeah.
So it essentially placed Ruth's fate in his hands.
Wow. Talk about a bold move. So how does Boaz react when he wakes up and finds Ruth at his feet?
Well, he's startled, of course, but not angry.
Okay.
He asks, "Who are you?" And Ruth identifies herself and makes a direct request. "Spread the corner of your garment over your servant.
Wow.
For you are a near kinsman."
That's powerful imagery.
Yeah.
The corner of the garment symbolizing protection and provision.
Yeah.
It's a marriage proposal, basically.
Yes.
Within their customs.
Absolutely.
But is Boaz ready to take on that role?
Well, Boaz is obviously impressed by Ruth's boldness and her loyalty to Naomi.
Yeah.
He praises her, he says. Blessed be you of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, because you didn't follow young men, whether poor or rich. So he's recognizing her integrity and her selflessness. But there's a twist.
There always is.
It's not so simple. Boaz explains that he's willing to fulfill the role, but there's another relative who's closer in line to redeem Naomi's land and marry Ruth.
Okay.
Promises to handle it honorably.
Okay.
And tells Ruth to stay for the night so that she's safe.
What a cliffhanger.
It is.
So the stage is set for this showdown at the city gate.
That's right.
Boaz gathers the elders and presents the situation to this other relative, offering him the right of redemption. What happens?
Well, there's tension, you know. At first, he seems willing to redeem the land, but then he learns that it would also mean marrying Ruth, a Moabite woman, and he backs out. He doesn't want to jeopardize his inheritance.
Right.
And he's probably also concerned about what people would think about him marrying a foreigner.
It's such a reminder of the prejudice that Ruth faced.
It is.
This twist of fate, though, allows Boaz to fulfill his promise.
Absolutely. With the other relative out of the picture, Boaz buys Naomi's land and declares in front of all these witnesses that he's going to marry Ruth.
It's amazing how far they've come.
It is.
From famine and despair to marriage and the restoration of Naomi's family.
Right.
And we can't forget the importance of Ruth's lineage.
We can't.
This is where the story connects to a much larger narrative.
Right.
Boaz and Ruth have a son, Obed.
Obed, yes.
Who becomes the grandfather of King David.
Yes.
So from this desperate journey to Moab to a love story that echoes through generations.
It does.
The book of Ruth is a testament to the power of loyalty.
Yes.
Kindness, resilience, and redemption.
It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, hope can blossom in unexpected places. And that small acts of courage and compassion can shape not only our own lives, but the lives of generations to come.
What a journey. The book of Ruth, it really is a powerful reminder that we're all part of a larger story.
We are.
A tapestry woven with love
and
loss and hope for a better future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the book of Ruth.
Thank you.